1985. Mount Osutaka, Japan. August 12th, a Boeing 747 lifted off in Japan. But what came next turned the sky into a haunting that has never faded. The summer air hung heavy over Gunma Prefecture, the mountains cloaked in a mist that moved like breath. Locals who lived in the shadow of Mount Osutaka knew the silence that sometimes settled there. It was the silence of waiting, of a land that remembered blood and demanded more. Old families spoke of restless kami, mountain spirits said to punish arrogance. For centuries, travelers had vanished in storms that rolled down without warning, their cries carried into the trees and never returned. On August 12th, 1985, a Boeing 747 lifted from Tokyo's Haneda Airport bound for Osaka. It should have been a short, routine hop across Japan. On board were families, business travelers, children on holiday. Yet before the jet had even left the coast behind, something invisible seemed to shadow it. Passengers would later be remembered for describing an odd stillness in the cabin, as though the air itself pressed against their lungs. Flight attendants whispered of a faint rattle in the rear, nothing alarming, but enough to draw nervous glances. Half an hour into the journey, the stillness broke. A dull boom echoed through the fuselage. The rear pressure bulkhead had torn, crippling the hydraulic systems. The jet no longer obeyed human hands. It climbed, dove, rolled, but never answered. For 30 minutes it circled helplessly, the largest ghost in the Japanese sky. Villagers on the ground swore the plane looked wrong, its movements jerky, unnatural, as though unseen strings jerked it through the clouds. One farmer claimed he heard voices, not from radios, but carried in the wind, wailing long before the crash. When the 747 struck the forested slope of Mount Osutaka, the roar shook valleys miles away. Rescue crews did not reach the wreckage until the following day, and in that long night, the mountain was anything but still. Residents in nearby villages said they heard hundreds of voices rising from the darkness, crying, moaning, sometimes screaming, carried on the mountain wind. Some ventured up with lanterns. Certain survivors still called for help. Yet the next morning, only a handful of living were found amid the dead. The rest of the voices, the rescuers said, could not be traced. What made the story darker was not just the tragedy, but the land's memory. Mount Osutaka was long believed cursed, a place where wandering souls lingered. Generations earlier, soldiers marched through these ridges, never to return. Villagers told of lights in the forest, pale orbs drifting like lanterns with no flame. In Shinto belief, these were yurei, spirits tethered to violent ends. The crash of 1985 seemed to awaken them. Survivors later said they felt surrounded by countless presences, as if the dying were embraced by others who had been waiting. Even after the wreckage was cleared, the hauntings did not fade. Locals reported headlights flickering near the mountain, drivers swerving to avoid phantom figures in the road. Hikers described hearing sudden footsteps behind them, only to turn and find the trail empty. Priests who came to bless the site spoke of cold winds that extinguished their candles, no matter how tightly they shielded the flame. For weeks after, villagers laid offerings of rice and incense, believing the mountain would not rest until honored. Investigators concluded metal fatigue had doomed the plane, a scar left from a flawed repair years earlier. But the whispers told otherwise. They said the bulkhead was only the excuse, not the cause. They believed the mountain, long hungry, had called once more. They said the plane was guided not by a crippled autopilot, but by hands unseen, drawn into Osutaka's embrace as surely as the wanderers of old. To this day, mourners leave flowers and incense at the memorial carved into the slope. Visitors speak of a silence so thick it rings in their ears, broken only by the rustle of unseen movement. Pilots crossing overhead sometimes report instruments flickering for seconds, then settling again, as though the sky itself hiccups when passing that ridge. What happened on August 12th was more than an accident, more than metal failing under pressure. It was a reminder whispered by the mountain itself. The sky over Osutaka is not empty. It remembers, and sometimes it hungers.